It's Triple Crown, Monday, June 23rd, 2025. I am back home from what was an incredible weekend at Fanatics Fest in New York City. This will be different than my normal vlogs. I did not wear my body cam for this one. I took some videos on my phone. It will be narration heavy. I might show you some raw footage from the clips, but a lot of it is review based. I'm going to talk about my experience, show you some of what I saw, talk about what was going on the show floor. I've seen so much discussion on social media, so I want to kind of tell you from at least my perspective what is true, what is accurate, what is not. But the show took place this past weekend, June 20th to the 22nd at the Javits Center in downtown New York City. So let's go ahead and show you what happened over the weekend. I went to the show with a few friends, helping them run their booth. I was able to put out a handful of cards of my own. I think it ended up being 10 cards. It's 10 of my heavy hitters. But here's where we were set up at. We were over at the Canes booth, which is kind of funny. But when we first got there, our booth was not set up yet. There was just this empty green carpet where the booth was supposed to be. As you can see, this is pretty early on Friday morning. They're still getting a lot of stuff set up. There was a lot that went into the setup, and you'll see more of what I mean by that as this video progresses. Here's a look at our showcases. I'm going to walk around the table here to show you kind of what they look like. I got them all laid out. On Friday morning, you can recognize some of my cards there with the black and gold price labels, I'm sure. But we packed a lot of stuff into these cases. There's a little bit of everything here, a little bit for everyone. There's definitely some New York bias in there. There's a lot of Judge. There's a huge Eli Manning section that we had just from purchases that we'd made. Of course, the big Joe Burrow selection to represent the Cincinnati area, and tons of football. Here's a look at the outside. This is midday on Friday. I took a little lunch break. The lines for the 3 food trucks outside were pretty long. The concession lines were a little bit better. I ended up just eating some deli sandwiches the next few days because it was $27 for a pretty simple meal at the food truck, which was to be expected, I guess. It is New York after all. This was my lone pickup of day one. It was a walk up to our booth. I was able to buy some things for myself that walked up, within reason. I was there to help friends out, and I did a lot of buying on their behalf. But here I got this Jared Goff, a rookie auto, PSA 9. This is the blue number to 75. I've been looking for a nice Goff for my own collection. I don't think I'm going to keep this one. Ultimately, I want one that is in the Lions uniform, and I'm still kind of searching for that right card. But I got this for $250. I thought that was a pretty decent price. The most recent sale in a 9 was a little lower on it. I was able to get it for what I thought was a pretty good deal. I mean, $250 for an on-card auto like this, to me, it's a no-brainer. So I was very pleased with that, despite it being my lone pickup of the first day of the show. My lone sale on Friday for myself was the Ozzie Smith Bat Barrel 1-of-1. I had a feeling that this was going to go at this show. I had a couple of offers around $1,200 that really wasn't of interest to me. I had a lot of people try to use the previous sales of the other Ozzie Smith Bat Barrels as well. But at the end of the day, it is still a 1-of-1, and he doesn't have a ton of Bat Barrel autos like this out there. It's one of those cards where if you really want it, you're kind of at the mercy of paying the price of what the seller wants. That's always an option when you're buying a card, right? You can wait for another one to pop up, pay up for it, or just completely pass altogether and move on from wanting to own that card. I eventually had someone come up. He really tried to get me at $15. He came in at $15.50 as well, and finally came back to the table, and we settled at $1,600, shook hands, and he took home the Ozzie Smith. That's exactly what I wanted for the card, and I was proud of myself for holding out and getting my number on that. Now, after the Ozzie Smith sale, I was able to go around and shop a little bit for myself and also just explore, see what's out there. There was some insane cards. I would say that this show's level of quality cards in terms of super high-end stuff was up there with what you would see at the National. I don't really recall any other show where I can think of it. I mean, you get pockets of it at some of the regional shows, but every single table had bangers at it. Now, part of that has to do with the cost to set up. New York, as I kind of alluded to earlier, is not a cheap place to visit. The Fanatics Fest booths are going to run you at least $3K, really closer to the $3,500 or $4K going to set up at this show. That I don't think that includes the Zion case rentals. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I think you have to pay beyond a certain amount. I think you get 3 of them included with your booth, and if you need more, then you have to add on for those, which makes sense that you're going to see so many high-end cards, so many comma cards, as people would say, that have price stickers of $1,000 plus. I mean, there is just insane cards at every single booth. I also saw some amazing collections there. Here's a A-Rod and Jeter collection with just banger after banger after banger. So many cool top Sterling cards, triple threads cards, any high-end baseball product, you name it, and it was in this case. I saw things that I had never seen in person before. I saw things that I never knew existed, or things that I had only heard about and finally saw with my own 2 eyes. Now, one of the downsides of that is that there was not a lot of affordability options on the show floor. What do I mean by that? Well, a lot of it has to do with, again, that high cost. People did not bring a lot of cheaper slabs or raw cards with them, especially value boxes. Value boxes were definitely few and far between. If you consider that a lot of people had to fly in, that makes a lot of sense because it's really difficult to take a value box on a plane. However, there were a lot of local dealers or people who I assume would drive there based on their proximity to the Javits Center who did not have value boxes as well. Perhaps they didn't think it was a good use of their table space. But that coinciding with a lot of the cards in the showcases were $1,000 plus, probably priced a lot of people out, and that is definitely something that probably could be improved upon for future shows. If a lot of people who have been comparing this to the National, if they want to say, oh, it's going to replace the National, all that, I don't think so. I think that these are 2 kind of separate entities. They're 2 different schools of thought that go into how these shows are approached. But in terms of the card show aspect of it, being able to have more cheap cards that are more affordable for the everyday average person attending the show is definitely something that I think needs to be considered going forward, especially by dealers. There's probably a huge opportunity there if they are able to bring those cards in with them, which I would imagine, again, would be a significant advantage for people who are local and can afford to fill up their car with as many cheaper cards as they can. On Saturday, the celebrity involvement really spiked up. You can see in this first clip there is Tom Brady, not too far away actually from our booth is set up at this kind of interview show that they had going on. You can see Jaden Daniels there as well. He was there Saturday afternoon. Victor Wembanyama was there. Jamar Chase was there. On Sunday, they had CM Punk there. I would say that in order from toughest to get a view of Brady by far and away, there were people at that stage an hour and a half before the show even started, and he even came out looking to just see Tom Brady in this show here. And then CM Punk as well, and the people were chanting his name for very long periods of time throughout his interview. You can see him there. He was there on Sunday morning. There was also a Raising Cane's booth that was, again, right next to us, where I saw some celebrities, mostly athletes like CeeDee Lamb. I saw Draymond Green there. I saw DeMar Hamlin there. I'm sure there were more too, but those are at least just the ones that I noticed. In terms of celebrity involvement on the show floor, this is the only one that I saw. This was Chelsea Green of WWE. She was at a booth that was kind of behind ours and to the right. And it kind of looked like she was in character talking to the vendor. There was a booth that had pretty much like a whole prism rainbow of her later on in the show that I saw down our aisle. So I kind of hope that she walked past that, because I'm sure the person who owned all those cards would have liked to meet her. But she was the only one who really got close to us in terms of celebrity involvement. I think the only other person who walked past or in the vicinity of our table was Ice Cube, of all people. On Saturday, sales-wise, the booth that I was working at, overall numbers were actually pretty much on par with Friday. I haven't seen that happening as much lately. I've been seeing Friday portions of shows be stronger for sales than Saturday, but our Saturday actually beat out the Friday. I had 2 sales of my own. The first one here is one that I was pretty sure was going to happen. In fact, I'm kind of surprised this card didn't get asked about or sold on Friday. But it is my Aaron Judge 2025 Topps Silver Pack Auto Orange Refractor. Paid just a hair over $400 for this and ended up selling it at $650 $11.50 for this show, so that is definitely a nice little markup. And then the other card that I had sold was this one, the AJ Styles Black Prism 1-of-1. One of my big takeaways from this weekend, I cannot understate how many wrestling fans were at this show. They had pretty much every big name active wrestler there doing signings, photo ops, and all that. I showed you the CM Punk interview earlier. They had a few angles. There was even a funny moment where they had a area where you could enter as your favorite wrestler, and James Harden was there, and he entered as Hulk Hogan, which is kind of a entertaining clip out there on social media if you want to go find it. But I had a feeling that wrestling might sell pretty well at this show. I finally found a buyer for this AJ Styles. I paid $1,000 for it. I was pretty much accepting that breaking even might be the best case scenario. And I actually got $11.50 out of it sales-wise, which was exactly what I was hoping to do. Just get a little something. But finally moving off of this card, a little sad to see it go because I just love black finite prisms. But hey, I chose not to keep it. I chose to sell it. And I am very pleased with those two sales here on the Saturday portion of the show. For my pickups on the Saturday portion, I was definitely a lot more active. I had now sold 3 decent sized cards, and it was time to do a little shopping. There was someone who walked up to a table looking at our Aaron Judge Dynasty patch auto. And one of the nice things about this is that I was able to basically buy the Judge patch auto for myself and use it for my own personal needs. It counted towards the sales for the booth, and then I was able to get some cards for myself. So it works out, for all parties in this case. But I was able to get some cash back on the Judge purchase I made, and I got these 2 cards, the Yamamoto Blue Refractor. There's 2 different Yamamoto rookie autos in Bowman Chrome. This one is definitely the more pricey of the 2. I think it's the one that actually came out in the regular Bowman, whereas the Bowman Chrome one is kind of his second rookie auto and definitely commands much less of a premium. Along with a Giancarlo Stanton Superfractor. I love Superfractors of guys who I think are underappreciated. Stanton is one of those guys. I've always loved him. What can I say? I like guys who hit the ball far. So that is a card that just jumped out to me, and was very glad to pick that up. Was then able to swing a deal for these cards as well. I was kind of thinking when I was doing my buying, would this stuff move in the shop that these guys who I was with run? In this case, I said, no, these probably wouldn't move as well just because I kind of knew what their target range was, and I decided to take a leap on them. And I bought this Bobby Witt auto number to 10 and this Juan Soto auto number to 3, as well as this Mike Piazza Triple Threads auto. I paid $1,000 for all 3 of these. Between that and the Yamamoto and Stanton, I was feeling pretty good about my pickups. But then this walked up to the table, and the repackers will gasp when they hear this. But yes, I did buy a card that has no comps. I know, very scary. I bought this Shohei Ohtani. This is the Big Apple exclusive to Fanatics Fest. You can pull these from the blasters. They are foil cards this year. Last year they were chrome cards. And this year, of course, there is now parallels to them. Gold Ohtani numbered to 50. I was kind of looking at what some of his Series 2 gold foils had sold for, the regular ones of him pitching without the New York City skyline in the background. And then I kind of put a little bit more of a tax on it to try to figure out the value. Now, I might have way overshot on this. I may have way underestimated this, but I ended up paying $300 for it with the idea that I could get $350 to $400. And immediately the feedback that I got on it was that it's worth a lot more than that. I have only seen one other one posted, and they are asking $2,000 on it. So maybe I caught a little break here. I don't know. I definitely don't think it's a $2,000 card. I don't even think it's a comic card. But if it is, above $500, then I would be pleasantly surprised and very pleased with that pickup. The guys I was staying with and helping out did give me some freebies throughout the weekend, including a lids box, which, if you don't know, there's 3 hats in there that are designed by Lids in collaboration with Topps. Mine had a Tony Gwynn and then 2 different Roberto Clementes. I ended up trading my Gwynn for a Ripken hat that I gave to someone who was walking by. He wanted it for his son. His son came up, and his son was named Cal, after Cal Ripken Jr., and Cal Ripken Jr. is his favorite all-time player. He was probably like 10 or something, so I said, you know what, just take the hat. I was in a really good mood too because I had just pulled this. This year, the Lids hats came with a pack of 3 cards. They're foil cards instead of chrome compared to the previous 2 years. I was asking my friend, does anybody pull anything good out of these? Well, sure enough, I feigned the cards out, saw that I had some gold, and I saw I had kind of a gold pattern. In fact, it was a foil fractor of Mike Trout. Kind of insane. I could not believe it. I've never pulled a super fractor before. I have pulled a gold vinyl once. This is technically a foil fractor, not a super fractor, but it's close as I've come to one. And boy, what a player to get. Mike Trout, who I saw go yard in the Yankees game on Thursday afternoon when I went with the guys. Just couldn't believe it. I was on cloud 9 after this pull. I wish I had been recording the opening because I could only imagine what my reaction was when I pulled this thing. I was just in pure disbelief. Sales on the Sunday portion of the show were definitely not as strong as the first 2 days. That is typically what happens when you have a Sunday of a weekend-long show. But that gave me a little bit more chance due to the slower nature of it to walk around and explore a bit more. I had really only been on what was the card show side of things. I hadn't really gone over to the corporate side, and oh boy, there was so much to do at this show. You'll see throughout the clips that pretty much every single league that was represented at this show had some kind of exhibit. You can see here I'm walking past the WWE setup here. They've got this thing where you can hit, I think it's Logan Paul, it looks like there, with a chair. That's like one of those things where you punch the bag and it gives you a score. They've got the championship belts, including my Tigers there of all the sports teams. They had them for all the different leagues and that. And then they had an entrance thing where you could like replicate your favorite wrestler's entrance. You can see the big NHL logo there. They had a hockey rink. I think you were able to do like slap shots and that kind of stuff. You'll see me pass by this race car here for Fanatics Sportsbook. They had a whole F1 set up as well. They had these driving simulators at both those places. There was a UFC setup that you'll see in just a moment with an octagon. Baseball had things that you'd probably see at a stadium. I think there was like a thing where you could see how fast your pitch was and all that. Just every single league had something interactive. They had a massive merchandise area as well. Stuff that was Fanatics exclusives for all the different sports, and then exclusive merch just for Fanatics Fest. Honestly, it was just way too much to show or even walk around in a day. I didn't even show you the lower levels where the photo ops and the signings were taking place. I didn't show you the more museum aspects of it where they were showing off rare memorabilia items or signed cards or just regular cards. There was so much to do in just this area of the show. Taking out the card part of it, if you wanted to go for an experience, you were definitely going to get your money's worth, in my opinion. Okay, let's talk about one of the more interesting things that I saw on Sunday that was very much a buzz throughout the entire weekend on social media, not just with this clip, but with several athletes that were on the show floor. You can see this big crowd of people a little bit down the aisle from where our booth was at, and down there is Cooper Flagg, the projected #1 pick in the upcoming NBA draft. He was surrounded by a large team of security and his handler as well, looking at a booth for what I assume was Cooper Flagg cards. Now, I heard a lot of different things on social media, people complaining that a lot of it is staged, it's scripted, it's corny. I heard people complaining that some of the dealer booths were inaccessible because of the large crowds that would swarm these guys. Let me tell you that a lot of truth is said in a lot of those messages. These kind of interactions are, in fact, kind of predetermined, I will say. What will happen is that you will have the handlers or kind of scouts, if you will, that are associated with Fanatics kind of go out and scout the show floor for things that the athletes might be interested in. For example, here, Cooper Flagg, I'm pretty sure they were looking for cool Cooper Flagg cards to show him. When Victor Wembanyama was out on the show floor, they were purposely looking for cool Star Wars cards because Wemby said that he likes Star Wars. Anytime that you saw these guys out there, it was kind of planned where they were going, which does make sense because it is somewhat of a security thing as well. They wanted to make sure that the movement of these guys didn't, jeopardize their safety or anything. So they knew exactly what booth they were going to go to. They knew exactly what route they were going to take. They knew kind of how long they were going to be there and what the interaction was going to look like. Is it a bit corny? Yes, it is a bit corny. I will not lie. A lot of this interactions, when they're staged, there is going to be a little bit of that because it's not a truly authentic moment. But some of the athletes definitely seemed interested in what they were looking at. There are some that definitely did not seem interested in what they were looking at. But I still think it's cool to have the athletes out on the show floor. In terms of the accessibility, though, I will say that, yes, that is a very valid concern. If you're paying a lot of money to set up here and your booth is kind of blocked off because a neighboring booth has one of these guys nearby, you might think, oh, well, you might get kind of collateral traffic that goes over to your booth. That was not the case. When Cooper Flagg left this area, the crowd very quickly disperses. Some people were literally running to try to get a picture of him as he was kind of being moved to the back area behind the black curtain that you can kind of see in the far background there. So in that aspect, it's not great if these guys are near your booth a lot of times because it usually will shy people away from actually making purchases with you. If there is a way that Fanatics could facilitate this in a different way, I feel like that would be extremely beneficial. But I don't know if there's really a good way to avoid it without making it even less authentic. I mean, it would probably involve them not walking the show floor, and I think having these guys out there makes for some cool Kodak moments, if you will. And part of this show is really spectacle. Now, can it be toned down a little bit? Sure, it can be, but they want this to be a grand event. They being Fanatics, they're going to do what they can to make it such an event, so I can't really fault them for that. I was able to pick up a few home field advantages for my collection on the trip. I got two 2025s. I got a Trey Turner and a Rafael Devers, which is kind of ironic now. Home field advantage with the Boston Red Sox. I also got my first legendary one being Mark McGwire. I found that at a booth walking around. But by far and away, my biggest pickup of the entire weekend and the only inventory purchase of the weekend, or on Sunday, I should say, was this Jalen Hurts 1/1 rookie auto out of Gold Standard. Gentleman came up with this card. He had two other cards with it, including a Cooper Flagg auto. I ended up buying that with this card. The first time I kind of made him an offer and he walked away. He came back later and I had cold feet on it. He wanted to know, if I was still interested. I didn't really think that it was the right price, but then I basically got the Cooper Flagg auto for free, minus $50 as well from the offer I had before. It seemed like he was really motivated to move it, and I figured at the price point that I was getting it at, I had to just take a shot. Now, this card had previously sold for $2,100. I bought that and the Flagg for $2,300. That sale of the Hertz was in March of 2024. Of course, he has won a Super Bowl since then. You would think that the card's value is a bit up, but it is a 1/1. What it's sold for in the past doesn't really matter all that much just because, well, I'm the only one who has this one now. And I know when I buy a card like this that the repackers will probably go to war with me, and there will be people who try to use that sale as leverage against me. But it's a 1/1. If someone is truly interested in this card, then they will be willing to pay a fair price. Now, I'm not trying to double up on this thing. I'm not putting this out for $5,000. I will put it out at most for $3,000. I'm probably going to start it at $2,800, and I'll maybe work down if I see fit. But it was one of those cards where I said, you know what, I want to take some more chances. Well, this is an opportunity that you only get so many bites at the apple, and you better seize it when you get the chance. So I decided to take a leap of faith. This one might be one that doesn't work out so well, but so far since I've kind of changed my mindset, I'm finding that I'm having a lot more wins than losses. So because of that, I think that this was the right move and the right timing, considering I sold so many big cards prior. Okay, I'll kind of wrap up my final thoughts here with my favorite picture of the weekend. I took this with my favorite cosplay I saw all weekend as an Aaron Rodgers hater. It was really cool to see this guy's get up here. Now, this show, I saw a lot of opinions online. I saw a lot of comparisons of this show to the National. I'm sure that's going to be the buzz. All the influencers will be comparing the two shows. To me, they are kind of apples and oranges because this is less of a card show and more of a Comic-Con type of feel. Now, I do say that as someone who has never been to a Comic-Con, but I know people who have. I have seen videos of Comic-Cons, and I will say that there are a lot more similarities to that. The card show is simply one aspect of this larger event, which makes sense because it's not called the Fanatics Card Show. It is called Fanatics Fest, which is a festival of sorts. It is very grand, and sometimes it's over the top, but those are adjectives that I would use to describe said festival if you were going to have one. I mentioned it earlier. I think Fanatics put their best foot forward. They did the best they could. They improved upon some of the areas of critique that I heard from reviews of the show, or the event I should say, in previous years, and the show portion of it was improved in a lot of ways. There is still plenty of room for improvement with it. I think some of the big things that I could see is more cards that are more affordable. It doesn't always have to be the $1,000 plus bangers and all grails in these showcases. It's cool to see them, but a lot of the people who want to go there and buy cards, they want to actually be able to walk out with something, and not everyone can afford to drop $1,000 on a card, nor may they want to if they don't see anything that they like. I think there definitely could be a better vintage presence at this show. I didn't see too many vintage dealers. The ones that I saw heavy pockets of vintage, there was often a lot of modern mixed in. I don't know if that's just because the vintage dealers were not interested in coming to this show. I don't know what the exact reason was, but I do think that there could be better representation of vintage for sure. I think that there could be more value boxes for the local vendors. It's definitely tougher from those who are not on the East Coast, who did not drive in to check a value box on a plane or to use it as your carry-on. Might not be the best use of your carry-on item, to be honest. It's really tough to travel with a big box full of cheaper cards, especially when you have to pay so much to set up. I can understand dealers wanting to put their best foot forward. That's what we did at our booth. I know the cards I brought, I didn't bring my $100, $200, $300 cards. I didn't bring my $50 cards. I brought my big boys because I felt like this was the best opportunity to move them. But again, comparing this show to the National, I think if you were to look at the two and which one would you want to go to, it really depends on what you want to get out of these shows. If you're looking for more experience-oriented, if you want more of a Comic-Con feel, if the cards aren't necessarily your most important part of the trip, then I do think that this is a really good show or experience for you to attend, especially if you're into the autograph and photo op side of the hobby. There's a lot of signers. There's a lot of people to meet, and they have a really diversified cast of athletes and celebrities attending this show. So if you want that part of it, then this might be better for you than the National. If you're someone who is strictly there on business to find cards for your collection or whatever you're going to do with them, then there are definitely better options out there because, again, the show focus is not entirely what the Fanatics Fest represents. I think that it is kind of a mix of everything. And while there was definitely a greater emphasis on the show portion this year, it's still not what you would see out of, say, a regional show, like a Dallas show or a Nashville show. Other regional shows that I've attended, I can say that the objective is not one and the same as those shows, nor is it one and the same of the National. These two things can coexist. I don't think that they have to compete against one another. I think that Fanatics Fest is simply an alternative to something that has kind of been traditional, and in some cases, some would argue a bit stale, being your traditional card show of the National. This is something kind of refreshing and new. And like it or not, I think that it does provide something new and is at least worth giving a shot. If you feel that there is any kind of interest in attending the event, I would encourage you to try it out. I wasn't 100% sure what to expect, and I ended up walking away from this show absolutely loving it. Sales-wise, we did phenomenal. I won't say what the overall booth number was for our total sales just because they are not all my cards. I don't know if they want that shared, so out of respect for their privacy, I will say, though, that it was an extremely successful show, in my opinion, in terms of the final number that we came to. The buyers at the show, a lot of them were gobbling up cards left and right. There were some repackers there playing very strong. There were some not paying very strong as well. I definitely got plenty of lowball offers. There was a lot of entitlement. I wonder, kind of in the back of my head, if some of the things that I heard were the result of me not wearing the body cam, because I don't know if people act differently when I have that on. Something tells me that they do. For example, I had someone on a Joe Burrow Kaboom tell me, well, that's what it's worth. And I go, yeah. And it was kind of, he got frustrated that I wouldn't come down and leave him room. I heard that probably a dozen times throughout the weekend, like, well, I don't really have any room to make money on this, which is just, how I feel about that. If you've watched the channel at all in any of the previous vlogs, you already know how I feel about that. One of the more funny things I saw is we had some kid, he probably was 15 years old, who came up, no hi, no nothing, just immediately goes like, what percentage are you selling your cards at? That was his greeting to the table, and we kind of laughed, and we kind of said, our sticker, and he just storms off after that. Some very interesting interactions, but there were a lot of people who were really friendly. There were some people who were definitely newer to the card game. I kind of expected that. I actually expected a bit more of that, because there's a lot of people there who weren't, again, necessarily card people, but I got asked a lot, how do you value your cards? How do you look up values of cards? What makes certain cards more expensive than other cards? Really beginner cards 101 lessons. But it was kind of cool to talk about it. In a sense, it was a bit refreshing. I was talking with Brad Beeman, promoter of the Ship Shawana show, for a little bit on Sunday morning. And he asked me, do you find that refreshing? In a sense, yeah. I do feel that it is kind of cool to have someone who isn't necessarily very knowledgeable on cards. Perhaps they just have a passing interest and they want to learn a little bit more. And it's kind of cool talking with them and being able to somewhat experience it for the first time through their eyes. I mean, to re-enter into the card game now, I can only imagine what that's like. I've really never taken a break since I was about 5 years old, so I don't know what it's like to kind of return and be in awe of all there is to explore, but it is definitely cool to kind of see it through new eyes on the cards. But generally speaking, I loved the show. I really did. There are definitely things to improve. There were parts that I wasn't completely fond of, but no show is ever perfect. And if you ask me when to go back again next year, the answer is absolutely. I would love to go back again. So that is going to wrap it up for me today. I hope that you enjoyed this. I know that this is a bit of a departure from my normal vlog style. A lot of narrative here just because I wasn't wearing the body cam showing the deals, but I really wanted to show all aspects of this experience and include a few clips too of my trip to Yankee Stadium, because I thought that was pretty cool too. But I will see you soon with some more regular content, and until then, take care, stay safe, and be kind.